Hello, welcome to my devlog series. My name is Edu Delm and I'm working in an action RPG / Tamagotchi game, where the player has to fight monsters while taking care of a creature and solving puzzles. For the past few weeks I've been working on a prototype in the Unity engine. It will include the basic mechanics of the game. The player can walk, dash, attack and get hurt by the enemies. I have set up a basic tileset with collisions and pathfinding using the A-Star pathfinding project for Unity. I will leave a link in the description for this tool. For the enemies, I created a small artificial intelligence. They can spot the player, chase him and, if they are close enough, attack. The white circle is the sight range for an idle enemy, while the red circle is the sight when it's engaged in combat. This means that an enemy in idle state will only see inside the white circle, but if the player engages in combat with him, he will see inside the red circle. For attacking, they have colliders with different properties. Attack strength, which is the number of hit points the attack does. Attack force, how hard the target is pushed when hit. Knockback timer, how long this force is applied to the target. An objective tax, that determines which objects can be harmed by the enemy attacks. For now I'm using the player model for the enemies, which can be a bit confusing. Here you can see how the player engages a group of enemies and fight them. The enemies can hurt and even kill each other. There is a limit on how many enemies can engage the player at once, handled by a combat manager. I will talk about that later. For the prototype, I made some manager classes. The first one is the input manager, that gives us the option of using a keyboard or a gamepad. The next one is the pathfinding manager. This one is in charge of declaring which zones are fit to walk in. Here you can see the walkable areas marked in blue, while the block areas are marked in red. This grid is updated when the enemies move. They can also set paths to reach the player thanks to this pathfinding manager. The path generated by the enemy is marked in green. This can lead to some issues where the enemy is stuck, but some fine-tuning should take care of the problem. Sometimes the enemy seems to be stuck, but they are actually in an idle state, as they have lost the player. Some animation will solve this problem. I included some audio effects and music in the prototype. This is handled by the audio manager. This class has several audio channels to play audio effects and music. I use 5 music channels and 40 effects channels, but if needed I could add more channels. Here are some of the code functions for this manager. It stores all channels in a list, and then searches for free ones to play audio effects or music. There are functions to play sounds and music based on a number ID, or you could simply pass the audio file to the manager and play it. These functions give me the liberty to play a sound in a loop, change volume, pitch and even play it in a 3D manner. This means playing the sound in a physical point of the game world. For example, for a faraway waterfall. The closer you get to it, the louder it sounds. Or I can just play the sound normally, where the camera is. The first music channel is reserved for the ambient music, and the second one for the music melody. I use LMMS for making a small melody test. It's a great open source program for making your own music. I will leave a link in the description. As I said earlier, the number of enemies that can engage the player depends on the combat manager. It has a list of enemies that are engaged in combat with the player. For example, these enemies have a maximum of 2 engage in combat. If the third enemy happens to see the player, it will maintain its distance, but he will always be facing the player, unless it's outside of his sight. The enemies can get out of this manager list if they are too far away from the player. In that case, a new spot is available for other enemy to take its place. For now, the enemies get disengaged from combat when they are hit, and this can lead to constant enemy switching in and out of combat, but seems to work for now. What do you think? At this point, I decided to be a bit more organized and create a Trello list. I will need to program interactable objects. For feeding the creature you have to take care of, reading post signs, etc. I will also need a pet system that can handle the pet needs and status. A level showing all the mechanics from the prototype would be nice too. For storing the pet information and how well or bad the player is taking care of it, I will need a pet manager. Trello gives us the option of creating labels for an easier navigation, so I will label all these tasks as prototype. Some kind of game over is needed, as for now the player can be hurt but not killed. And, for clarity, some basic pixel art graphics, tilesets and enemy sprites. Later I decided to create some sprites for a thief enemy. I am using a sprite to create the art of the game. It's a great tool for pixel art and sprites is really cheap. You can also try it for free to see what it's like. I will leave a link in the description so you can check it out. As I don't want to spend too much time in the art of the prototype, I have used the player as a base for the enemy. I made the enemy slightly bigger and gave him different clothes. As a reference, I used an image of medieval clothing. Something that can be a bit confusing in the current state of the prototype is the enemy attack. Their AI has a timer to prepare for an attack, so it will be nice to have different animation when the enemy is preparing for attack. These graphics are temporary, but will be great for figuring things out in the prototype. For the pet system, I will only use happiness and hunger as needs for the prototype. The player will have to feed and entertain the creature. Getting into combat and especially being hit by enemies will decrease its happiness. Hunger will increase over time. With all these pieces in place, I can focus on creating a prototype level showing these mechanics. The idea of the level is to start with a calm area. Here the player will be able to familiarize with the controls. In the mix section I will add a group of enemies to introduce combat. I choose to place 3 enemies to teach the player that only 2 enemies can be engaged at once. At least this kind of enemies, which are the basic ones. The level also introduces the 2 basic needs of the pet, hunger and happiness. The blue circles are entertaining areas where the player can restore the pet's happiness. The red fruits are one-use items that restore hunger. Both of these items use the interactable system I made earlier, which is really customizable. Using Unity's editor I can create different interactable objects using the same base. At the end of the level, the player will be able to feed the creature again, and try calming it from combat. Here is the final result of the prototype. For the background I use an image for opengameart.org. You will have a link in the description, in case you want to check it out. In the future it will be a parallax effect with distant mountains. In the right top corner I place a debug text showing the creature status. I couldn't decide what the creature will look like, so I use a rock for now. Do you have any suggestions for the creature's look? Leave a comment with your ideas. And that's it for this week. If you liked the video, please subscribe for more game devlogs. And don't forget to comment your ideas for the game. See you next week.